Well, members of the Society and friends, firstly, thank you very much to Dean Smith for that warm welcome. You can see that we fellow West Australians stick together. Secondly, let me say, as perhaps some of you have gathered from an alteration to the program, I was asked to say a few words at short notice. Now, with the main course in the offing, you can cling to the hope that I will be brief. Now, while wondering what to say, my mind went to a cartoon I recently saw in The Spectator. It shows a protester holding up a placard that is completely blank. When questioned by a passerby, the protester says he's demonstrating in support of free speech. But as to his blank sign, he adds, you have to be so careful what you say these days. Well, indeed, we all know that to be very true indeed. Now, as it turns out, I was asked to say something in the circumstances I've described about themes of the conference and the exercise of governmental power in modern times. And I thought I would say a few words about ministerial responsibility and the role of quangos, that is, quasi-autonomous, non-governmental organisations. As Dean has just indicated, not so long ago I completed a 3-year term as chairman of the Art Gallery of Western Australia. So the role of governmental boards and some of the other ones I've been on in trying to spend taxpayers' money wisely has been on my mind of late. Do people appointed to these boards help or hinder the work of elected governments? I have little doubt that there are many people in this room who have served on boards and have asked themselves the same question. I will return to that question, but first a little more personal background, if I may. I've served on various boards over the years, as Dean indicated, mostly in the arts, and indeed, as he indicated some years ago, I was privileged to serve on the Australia Council as Deputy Chair to Geoffrey Blaney, well known to us all, who will be speaking tomorrow night. Now, my background, as you've gathered, is principally in law and literature. But I was asked to chair the WA Art Gallery board for a short period to help sort out some financial issues that had arisen. Now, let me begin by saying I wasn't entirely naive in taking on this role. I knew that artistic types can often be difficult, to put it mildly. For example, I recall being at a literary festival early in my career when people were lining up at the book signing tables, but no one wanted me to sign my book. A famous writer at the table next to me placed a kindly, avuncular hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't feel too bad. The same thing once happened to me." "Oh, gee, gosh," I said, brimming with gratitude. "Did it really?" "No, it didn't," he said. "That never happened." Well, I should have guessed. He was famed for being a writer of fiction, proud of his ability to concoct fantastic tales at a moment's notice. But I soon discovered that visual artists can be equally difficult and equally egotistical. The story goes that a brash young artist fronted up to a leading critic at a new exhibition and said, truculently, as is usually the case, "So what's your opinion of my painting?" "It's worthless," the critic said. To which the artist, the brash young man, replied, "Don't worry, I know your opinion is worthless, but I would like to hear it anyway." Egotism and sensitivities in the visual arts. The chair of a gallery board is expected to attend a good many exhibition openings, and when asked for his opinion is obliged to be excessively tactful, especially about works of contemporary art. I sought advice about this dilemma from a friend in the visual arts, renowned for his black humour and mischievous wit. He said that in responding to some mishmash of paint on canvas, or a quagmire of something ghastly on the gallery floor, my best course would be to draw upon the manual of pre-hospital guidelines providing advice to ambulance officers. He quoted from the manual, "If a patient asks, 'I'm dying, aren't I?' respond smoothly with something reassuring like, 'You have some very serious problems, but we are not giving up on you.'" I never actually said those soothing words to an avant-garde artist, but I was tempted. They came to mind the night we had a gala opening on the rooftop of the gallery in the presence of the Minister for Arts and the Leader of the Opposition, while exhibiting video installations by the American artist Ryan Trecarton. In the first phase of the artist's early period, he filmed undergraduates smashing suburban letterboxes with sledgehammers. His mature work, on display at our gala opening, consisted of much the same mob, a little older perhaps, trashing a motel room before jumping into the motel pool with the remnants of a TV set and an air conditioner. No pun intended, but it seemed that Ryan's output as a whole was mostly rubbish. Or perhaps an illustration of the old political aphorism known to many in this room, that the student leader of today may turn out to be the student leader of tomorrow. The gallery curators, of course, on the night had a swag of clippings from the New Yorker and other prestigious publications to say that Ryan Trecarton was the latest and much admired thing. The minister didn't have to agree, for he wasn't responsible for the exhibition. Although in art, as in politics, it is generally safest to have a bet each way by saying something like, "How good is Ryan Trecarton?" An echo of how good is Australia? Now, all of this brings me back to the central question I mentioned earlier. The quasi-autonomous boards, do quasi-autonomous boards help or hinder the spending of taxpayers' funds? Governing boards in the arts are probably a special case because taste and standards in all the arts are a matter of fashion, critical appraisal and personal opinion. What seems bizarre today may be widely accepted tomorrow. There are, however, certain features of the Quango landscape which are common to all boards, and in the few minutes remaining to me, let me touch briefly on some pros and cons for your consideration. Now, the idea is that appointees to boards of this kind will bring with them a layer of expertise or insight that might not otherwise be available to the minister, and will leave a healthy impression of community involvement. But this may be illusory. The process of recruitment, in my experience, tends to be haphazard, and in any event, it is hard to find people who are actually available. And I pause there to say, in some discussion at our table tonight, another point I wish to make was emphasise that it's increasingly difficult to recruit because of the onset of additional legal liabilities for the members of boards generally. That opens up a whole Pandora's box, which I will pass over for the time being. But that is another factor in the recruitment process. Other matters are this, that people who have achieved a good deal of success in the running of specific businesses are often at sea in the realm of general ideas and general policies. Even for multi-talented board members, it will often be difficult to formulate and press ahead with new initiatives because part-time membership of a board turns over allies and supporters come and go, and the corporate memory at board level is often hazy, partly because of the turnover and partly because the full-time professional staff are inclined to keep at arm's length part-time members who thus are not fully informed. In short, it is difficult to keep the progress of new initiatives and policies on track. Further, the presence of the board may not only deter the minister from taking decisive action in the course of his portfolio, but also immunise him or her to some extent from public critique. In many areas of public administration, a case can be made that the voice of the public will only be heard effectively if ministers assume greater responsibility for what happens in their domain, because a failure to heed the voice will, of course, result in electoral repercussions. Ministers have an electoral incentive to fashion and defend important decisions which Quango boards do not always seem to have. Now, there is much else I could say about this general issue, the role of Quangos in cutting across the convention of ministerial responsibility under the Westminster system of government. But I trust that in the limited time available, I have opened up at least a few points for your consideration. Now, let me close by assuring you that my exposure to a few unusual incidents or instances of contemporary art has not impaired my general appreciation of the visual arts. A leading critic said not so long ago, "I don't know what art is, but I know what it isn't." And it isn't, he added, sotto voce, Tracy Emin's unmade bed, or someone walking round with a salmon over his shoulder, or embroidering the name of everyone he's ever slept with on the inside of a tent. Thank you for your attention.